So we have more news in the challenges against the ATF pistol brace rule. The Trump DOJ recently agreed to drop the Fifth Circuit appeal in the critical mock pistol brace lawsuit. However, in one of the other cases that was moving towards settlement, now the ATF is trying to use the government shutdown to stall out that settlement. So let's break down what is happening in this critical case. Now, before we jump into this video, I want to ask you guys for a favor. If you appreciate this type of 2A content and you want to support the channel, please subscribe to the channel. I know also a lot of you have been unsubscribed from the channel. YouTube does that a lot. So just double check to make sure you're still subscribed, because all of that does help the channel to grow. Also, if you want to ensure that you get these videos when they are released, you can go and click the notification bell and turn on all notifications. And that should ensure that YouTube will actually send you these videos. It's not guaranteed. They don't always send those out, unfortunately, but it's another way to ensure that you get these videos when they're released. Now, I also want to thank one of the main supporters of this channel, which is Attorneys on Retainer. When it comes to self-defense protection, AOR is in a league of their own. They are backed by an actual law firm, the Attorneys for Freedom, so they can help you in self-defense situations that maybe other companies cannot. And right now they have actually expanded their benefits, so you can get a lot included in your benefits, and they're always trying to expand and improve upon what you actually get in the program. And if you use my code ARMEDSCHOLAR, you can get $50 off an individual sign-up plan or $25 off of a family plan. So as I mentioned in the intro, we have some important news in the battle against the ATF and their current restrictions on all brace pistols as SBRs. The Trump DOJ recently stipulated to the Fifth Circuit that they have agreed with the plaintiffs to drop the active appeal in that pistol brace issue. The prior nationwide vacatur of the pistol brace rule was appealed to the Fifth Circuit by the then Biden administration, but now the Trump DOJ and the Trump administration have agreed to drop that lawsuit, agreed to a settlement, and said that the nationwide vacatur of the rule will go in place. And now that decision by the Trump DOJ to drop the mock lawsuit is impacting even more pistol brace cases. Recently, the lawsuit filed by FRAC, SB Tactical in 25 states in the 8th Circuit was also settled and dismissed. And in that settlement, the ATF admitted that they will no longer enforce the brace rule and that it should be vacated. Now, interestingly, we are still waiting for another case to go in the same direction. In the SAF pistol brace challenge, the parties had stayed proceedings to further discuss, potentially doing the same thing, agreeing to a settlement. However, now the ATF is using the government shutdown to further delay essentially the inevitable. Now, you may recall that the ATF suffered multiple losses in a variety of pistol brace cases. Not only did they have multiple preliminary injunctions granted against the rule, but also you had Judge Reed O'Connor in the Northern District of Texas issue a final merits decision in the mock lawsuit, striking down the rule completely on the final merits with a nationwide vacatur of the rule. In his ruling, Judge O'Connor stated that at the conclusion of the majority's careful analysis, they held that the final rule is properly characterized as a legislative rule, and it is relatively straightforward that the final rule was not a logical outgrowth of the proposed rule. Therefore, the final rule must be set aside. That decision was huge because it was on the final merits, striking down the pistol brace rule entirely nationwide. And in response, at that time, the Biden ATF decided to appeal to the Fifth Circuit. There was a temporary abeyance in that case so that the Trump DOJ could decide essentially what they wanted to do and how they wanted to handle this once they got the administration control of the ATF and all of that. But then there was a deadline that kind of came and went, and the Fifth Circuit had essentially sent a notice that they were going to set that for oral arguments. But then essentially what happened is the tables kind of turned, and the Trump DOJ decided to pull the appeal in the Fifth Circuit and concede that the case was over. So in the mock challenge, the ATF agreed that Judge Reed O'Connor's prior nationwide vacatur of the rule will now go into full effect, and that the ATF will concede that the pistol brace rule is vacated. That was the first domino that fell in all these pistol brace challenges, but there were still other lawsuits, out there in other jurisdictions, in district courts that were still moving forward, and essentially some of them were also on hold, waiting to see what happened in mock. You have multiple cases like the Fifth Circuit jurisdiction cases like GOA, SAF, and other lawsuits, and then you have the FRAC lawsuit also in a different circuit court. And again, like I mentioned, you have this SAF challenge that was under the Fifth Circuit's jurisdiction that was on hold because of the mock appeal. Recently, we saw that the ATF and SAF had sent a notice to the court here in light of the mock dismissal, and they were also actively moving to resolve this case. So they notified the court that in light of mock that they are potentially also moving to settle this case, and they're trying to determine if they're going to proceed forward with this lawsuit, if there's anything else that needs to be essentially resolved, maybe in a settlement or some sort of agreement with the ATF. And so they put that on hold, and they're saying that they're discussing with the ATF and they're going to reach some sort of conclusion and notify the court of what they decided to do. Well, now we have also received a notice in that case that the ATF is seeking a further delay in the reporting and potential settlement in this case because of the current government shutdown. Now, in that recent notice that was sent by the ATF and the Trump DOJ, it states that absent an appropriation, Department of Justice attorneys and employees of the defendants are prohibited from working even on a voluntary basis, except in very limited circumstances, including emergencies involving the safety of human life or the protection of property. Undersigned counsel for the Department of Justice therefore request a stay of the joint status report deadlines until Congress has restored appropriations to the department. So this pistol brace case will likely be delayed further from settlement. However, ultimately kind of the writing is on the wall for this case and the other cases that they will be resolved at some point, kind of like the two other brace cases that have already been resolved by the ATF. However, right now in this one, the ATF is saying we need more time, we need an extension because of the current government shutdown, and we want it extended as long as the current government is shut down. However many days that is, this should be extended out. Now, one thing I want to note is kind of the long game implications of these rulings and these decisions, essentially to agree to drop these appeals and to settle all these other cases. By agreeing with the Trump DOJ to drop these cases, you kind of get that immediate win and you end the pistol brace rule right here and now, but you also lose the opportunity to get a larger, more impactful final merits win in maybe a court of appeals. If another anti-gun administration comes into office and they decide to take another crack at the pistol brace rule or try to restrict braces, the only precedent that you really have is in the district court in that mock ruling. That was a final merits ruling, but it's still only at a district court level. That ruling is not necessarily binding on other jurisdictions, and it's only persuasive at best on this specific rule that was put in place by the Biden ATF. That ruling also was only based on an APA procedural issue from the illogical outgrowth test, which could be remedied by maybe a future anti-gun administration. So you get an immediate win right here now, but there are some kind of longer term ramifications for settling these right now, maybe because you would have another anti-gun administration come in and try to essentially ban brace pistols once again as SBRs. But still, for now, that is what the Trump DOJ and the plaintiffs in these challenges are choosing to do. And now it looks like the same is happening in the SAF challenge in other cases as well. But currently, this settlement is being delayed by the ATF because of the current government shutdown. So this is going to be extended out further. But like I said, ultimately, I think that this case is going to go the same way as the mock lawsuit. So that's what's currently happening in these critical pistol brace challenges. It appears that the ATF is agreeing that this rule is vacated, and now we're just waiting to see all these other cases be resolved, but there is some delay in this specific SAF case. So as we get more information, as this stuff unravels more, I will let you know. If you like this video and you'd like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that, of course, is to subscribe to the channel. That, of course, helps the channel to grow. Also, you can check out my website, armedscholar.com. Over there, we have a lot for you guys. But as always, thank you so much for all of your support. And never forget, this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.